Hey, my people, Prime people, welcome back to another edition of the Prime Culture Podcast. I'm sitting here with Cruz Ramirez. And hey, Pastor Cruz, we got a real special guest today.
Hey, we got a banger, bro. We got a banger.
If you do not know who Daniel Gray is, what is wrong with you? He's ministry like youth, young adults, evangelists, everything in between. I think vloggers in there too. Bro, I love Pastor Daniel's heart, and he is here today. Bro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be with you guys, man. I love you guys.
I love you too. Love you too. Hey, how much do you miss golf right now?
Well, the crazy thing is, they're saying here in Georgia, the only businesses that can be open are essential businesses, but somehow these private owned golf courses around here have made it in. And so I just go over to these golf courses by my house where I live and hit balls. And that's one of the ways I've been able to stay sane. So actually I'm playing a little bit more golf right now because I could just go and hit the range. So it's kind of cool that they're open in a global pandemic.
That's rad.
Yeah, you gotta love that. Hey, none of us ever thought that this would be the place that we are living in 2020. We are in quarantine to some extent all across the country, around the world, and this is what the people need to know today. Who are your top 5 professional wrestlers ever?
Let's go.
No.
I'm ready.
We're going there.
Yeah,
This
is what the people need. I'm not talking about best in-ring wrestlers. I'm not talking about best entertainers. I'm talking about your personal top 5 wrestlers, period. I'll start so it's not too much pressure. I like to go old school. As I go back to my favorite, no particular order, Kerry Von Erich. Gotta be Hulk Hogan. It's gotta be. I grew up on the Hulkster, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and this guy has just made it to my top 5, Chris Jericho.
Wow. Well, I'm kind of disappointed. That's a great list, by the way. I'm kind of disappointed that you went first because I didn't want you to steal any of my thunder. But I'm going to have to go. Okay, so this is a big deal. I grew up on this stuff. Okay, I grew up before it was WWE. I grew up on WWF and WCW, Nitro and Raw on the same night, and you got to flip back and forth. And that was when that button on the remote control that says, go back, that was when that button was.
Let's go.
That was it, man. So, okay, so you took at least one of mine. I'm going to have to go in no particular order because that makes it easier for me.
That's important.
I'm going to go Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. I'm going to go The Undertaker. I'm going to go Macho Man. I have to put Hogan in there. And then number 5, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Hey, that's a great list. It's a great list.
I feel like Sting is right there, though.
He's right there. He's right there. Yo, but my question is this, though. If we're talking just wrestling universe, right?
Yeah.
Are we separating individual wrestlers from tag teams? Because to me, top 5 just draws. It has to be Legion of Doom.
Oh my gosh.
You have to throw Hawk and Animal in there, man. Right?
Yeah.
To me, it's Legion of Doom, no particular order. Legion of Doom, The Rock, Bret the Hitman Hart for sure. Mm-hmm. And just out of nostalgia, just guys I loved to watch, Hulkster and Ultimate Warrior. To me, that's my lineup.
Since this is what you wanted to bring up, this topic of discussion, I know this is one of the ways, Pastor Mark, when I met you years ago, we connected on this level because I let you know, hey, here's something you don't know about me. I grew up on, professional wrestling, WWF, WCW, the whole thing. And then you began to tell me that you did that as a profession, you wrestled people that I recognize their names and stuff. So tell us, I know I'm hijacking the podcast right now.
Here we go.
I want you to tell us, okay, your best wrestling story that you have.
Dude.
The best wrestling story I have is really the only one that matters.
Okay. And, I think I've heard this one, and this is what I'm fishing for.
Yeah, I'm going to give you exactly what you wanted. I think it was 2001, I believe. 2001. And we we were doing a big outreach for the church I was a part of, and we called in, and we had for that event we had Sting was there, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Terry Taylor, and then the Legion of Doom were all there. And so
Wow.
I mean, this is like as quickly as my wrestling career took off, as quickly as it ended. But this is the shining moment. Is my brother and I we wrestled LOD, and halfway, not even halfway, a quarter of the way into working, I was in the ring with Hawk, and I took a gut wrench suplex, and he got me vertical and then brought me straight down on top of my shoulder. And so beginning of the match, we don't know if it was torn or what, but my rotator's cuff was jacked.
Wow.
And we made it through the whole match. I think we won somehow by count out or something. And
That's
they did the whole doomsday device, the whole thing. And at the end of the match, Sting came in with the bat, swinging the bat on us, Scorpion Death Drop, the whole thing. It was awesome. It was awesome. But here's one thing about professional wrestling, it's so fun to watch. But if you're not getting paid to do it, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Man. The physical toll is ridiculous. But it was some of my favorite memories for sure are in the ring. Absolutely.
Dude, I wish I could see that. I wish you had footage that you could somehow, just put on the end of this podcast, let people know what link to go to so we could see some footage of the big guy, okay? So
I'm hecka jealous. I've heard the story, but I always thought it was Sting. In my head, I was like, the story I always told myself was like Mark wrestled Sting. I didn't realize it was Legion of Doom.
Oh yeah, no,
Right.
we went like
I'm so jealous.
with LOD, yeah.
How big are those guys, bro?
They are scary, man. We went to the gym, and like the whole gym stopped when they walked in. They're just doing the reps, and everyone's just staring at. They're very scary. But the moment they put on the pads, it is the most intimidating thing in the whole world. Great guys, awesome guys, but I'm not gonna lie, my feet a little.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, they're great guys. But they all, everybody that we had in had given their life to the Lord, and so
That's awesome.
that Sunday, Sting he spoke at the church we were with, and then Hawk and Animal went across town and they gave their testimony. They were like just saved, and so it was intense.
Raw.
But yeah, it was very raw. Yes, absolutely. But great guys, and an awesome memory for sure. But I was thinking about this conversation we're going to have today, and I mean some of your journey, Daniel, that you've had in life. I mean, you have a really, man, and such a powerful testimony. I mean, where God brought you from, and now you're affecting so many people, not just as a youth pastor, young adults, and now evangelists, but now you're discipling and mentoring upcoming leaders. And bro, it's so incredible to watch how God is using you and Heather, your family, to impact the next generation of leaders. And can you kind of walk us through some of your story and kind of what God's done, where He brought you from, where you are now?
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm still blown away every day. It's not a cliche statement, but when I especially when I have quiet times with God or I'm praying in the morning, I just, that's what still makes me cry, is when I think about where I was, who I was, what I was doing, and how God still had His hand on my life, and that God still had a plan for me, even though I was running in the other direction. Because honestly, like, a lot of times when I travel and speak, that's what I do full time now. A lot of times when I'll open up with an audience, maybe that's never heard me before, we've never met. A lot of times I'll share, like, I'm a pastor today. I was 10 years, a decade of youth ministry, and 3 more years of young adult ministry, and traveling. Now I'm in my 3rd year full time as an evangelist. Like, I've been doing this a while. I've been serving God a while, but it wasn't always that way. Like, I mean, I can just, today I'm 35 years old. You rewind all the way back to 17, 18 years old. And that half of my life, that first part of my life, is dramatically different than how I live now and who I am today. Um, you know, my story can really be shared in a minute, or it can be shared in 10 minutes. And so I'll give a very brief version of my story. Basically, just really young as a teenager, I started dabbling in drinking and drugs. And, over the years, that just snowballed and escalated into I became a full blown alcoholic and a drug addict by the age of 16, 17 years old. In fact, when I was 17 years old, I had dropped out of high school. I found out because I guess got connected with the wrong crowd initially. That's what happened. I just met these people that I got connected to, and I saw the drugs and the money and the girls and the power and the influence, and I was searching for something in my life. And so I wanted that lifestyle. And so I embraced it. I started selling drugs at 16, 17 years old so that I could have enough money to pay rent so I could move out of my house. And as a young teenager, I'm living on my own. And basically my whole life was a party. I mean, that's all we did. We drank, we smoked, we did drugs, we popped Molly, we went to clubs. And because I sold drugs at 17 years old, I could go into these strip clubs where these adult entertainment clubs where these dancers would be, and then they would shut down at about 1 or 2 in the morning, and then that's when we would throw these rave parties. And at these rave parties, all these people were coming to these parties, and that's where I started selling enough drugs that I realized I could just move out. I can just party. And I mean, 16, 17 years old, I'm just like living this life, like in the fast lane, like drugs and alcohol all the time. And people would say to me things like, you're only going to end up dead or in jail. And my response at that time of my life was like, I don't care. What am I living for? Who cares? Like, I'm only living for right now. And so, I was on, due to my lifestyle, I made a lot of bad choices, right? So there was a point where I was on probation in 2 states at one time. I had been incarcerated several times. I had 3 DUIs, okay? In the first 3 years, you could hold a license. And that sounds impossible because in most states, you wouldn't even get your license back in time to be able to get 3 in 3 years. But because I was a minor in 2 states, and the third DUI was a third state, right? I was able to have a DUI, get my license back, get a DUI, get my license back, have another DUI. And that was just this, I just didn't care, man. Like I didn't care. I lived my life to party. I lived my life to find this purpose and power in something. And I didn't know what it was, but a lot of things happened. But one night I left a party. I was very intoxicated. I got behind the wheel of my car. We had been up all night. This is like, we were at the club, then we were at the after party. Then it's like the after party. Like it's 5:30 in the morning. I decided to drive my car after a night of just crazy partying. And I made it about a mile down the road from this apartment complex I was at until I lost consciousness at the wheel of my car. And I veered into oncoming traffic. I hit this median, and my car literally flipped several times across oncoming traffic. And I landed in Athens, Alabama is where this was. I landed in a ditch next to a small creek. And when the paramedics got to the scene of my accident, and they had to literally cut me out of my mangled car with the jaws of life, one of them noticed that I stopped breathing. I was having trouble breathing. And so they quickly stopped helping everybody else. And all of them came to focus on me. And they noticed that I stopped breathing. And so they checked my pulse, lost pulse. They literally lost me for some moments there, for some time. They had to cut away, they had to rush me out of the car, get me to an ambulance. They cut my jacket away, and they had to perform CPR. They had to use an AED device on me, the whole thing. And I somehow miraculously, my heart started beating again. My lungs started pumping again. And I lived through that accident. And I'll never forget waking up, the next day in the hospital. And the nurse says to me, she says, I didn't know what had happened where I was, right? And the nurse is like, you're the luckiest person I've seen since I've been working at this hospital. She said, let me tell you what happened to you. You were in a car accident. She said, your friends are okay. Because I had 2 friends that were with me. They were injured, but there was nothing that was really too terrible that happened. But what happened to me wasn't even the ramifications of the accident. It wasn't even the physical toll that I took on my body. They said that I had so much alcohol. My blood alcohol level was like over 5 times the legal limit. It was a 0.4 something. And that was by the time they got me to a hospital. They said the amount of, we found, other drugs in your system, and you were just messed up. Like your body shut down. Your heart stopped beating. Just being up for hours and hours and hours and just putting all these chemicals in my body and just living for this party, thinking that nothing could touch me and nothing, I'm unstoppable. And here I am in a car accident where I literally lose my life. And I wake up and the nurse tells me, you died, but somehow they were able to revive you. Do you know, you would think like, oh, that's why you changed your life. No wonder. You're an evangelist now. No wonder you're a pastor. No wonder you gave your life to the ministry. You died, bro, and God let you come back. But you know what's crazy? That is not it. That's not what happened. That is not how the story went. When that nurse told me that I literally was revived, I just thought to myself, like, look, nothing can stop me. Like, I felt like nothing should change. And people would say, why didn't that make you want to change? And I realized today, especially today, it makes me want to cry. I didn't care that I died because I didn't realize I had a reason to live. You feel me? Like I didn't know, like, why do I care if I wake up tomorrow or not? All I feel is pain. All I'm trying to do with these drugs and alcohol and partying, I'm trying to drown out the sorrow. You know what I mean? So, man, long story short, I told you I'd give you the short version. After that happened, I didn't change, man. I went right back to the same stuff. But it was about 6 months later that one of my closest friends at a party we were all at just gets into a fight with his younger brother and just out of nowhere just kind of gets out of that scuffle, runs into his bedroom. And there was a party going on, about 25 people there. And he reaches under this bookshelf and picks up a loaded gun and he puts it to his head and he pulls the trigger. And in a moment, my friend was gone. I mean, in a moment, we had no time to say, stop, wait, think about it. What are you doing? You're only in your 20s. Don't take your life away, right? Like, but he was gone. And it was after that, man, after his funeral, that I was in my bedroom. I was all alone. I didn't have a pastor, an online service, a youth pastor. I didn't have anybody that was witnessing to me. But all I had was my brokenness. And all I had was this place where I felt like I was at the end of my rope. Literally, I felt suicidal myself. And the best way I can explain to you how I found God, like how I found Jesus, right, is I just heard these questions. And I really wasn't even a believer. Like, I didn't know if there was a God. If there was one, I really didn't want God, right? But I heard these questions, man. And it wasn't like an audible voice, but it was the first time I felt like my spirit was connecting with something. And I heard these questions. Where are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? So clearly. And I knew I had no answers. And somehow I knew that must be God. And I didn't know how to have an altar call. And I didn't know how to do any of that. But I just said, God, if you're real, I want you. I'm going to make some changes. And that was how I found the Lord. I called my dad. I said, hey, Dad, I felt like God got my attention. I said, I've gotten in a lot of trouble. I've been in jail about 7 times, in the past several years. I'm on probation in 2 states right now. But if you will come and get me, I feel like God wants me to change my life. And I will call my probation officers and get special permission to leave the state so I can change my life. And that was the beginning of my journey, man. And now, several years later, over a decade later, I'm so blessed to be a pastor. I'm so blessed to be able to do what I love to do, which is travel, preach the gospel around the world. I'm so blessed to have a wife and 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl. Man, God has done so much over these years. And that's why I'm so passionate when I preach, teach, when I write, when I minister. I'm so passionate because if you could see my past, you would understand my passion. If you could see what God rescued me from, if you could see the love and the grace that I didn't deserve, that he poured out in my life, then you would know why I'm so passionate. And so, man, he saved me from a life of sin, and I'm forever grateful.
No, I love it. I love it, Daniel. Thank you for sharing that with us, man. I don't think anyone should ever apologize for telling their story. And I think you should always take your time when you tell that story, man. It's a brilliant, brilliant story of just the power of God. I don't want to take for granted, and I don't want to assume where those of you that are listening right now and catching this content, I don't want to assume where you're at right now in your walk in life, your walk with Jesus, your walk in faith. But I think something that we can all agree on is that if we take an inventory of our life, we look over our life, there's always areas for life change, right? And life change may not always be as radical as Daniel's, right? But it doesn't mean that it's not as significant. right? Life change is literally life change, right? And it's a big deal, right? You don't have to literally lose your life for your life to change. It's a big deal though whenever you take a moment to say, man, I feel like there is something drawing me, there's something nudging me, there's something pushing me towards changing who I am, where I'm going. What was the third one? Who are you, where are you going, and what are you doing?
Where it was where are you? What are you doing? Where are you going?
Jeez, right? And I mean, I really want us to focus on those questions, right? Like, again, give them to me, Daniel. Where are you?
Where are you? And I mean, you know what's crazy? Let me say this about that first question, man, because I was like, I didn't know my Bible then, but I know the first thing I heard God said
Come on.
was, where are you? And I didn't even know the story of Adam in the garden. I didn't even know
Yeah.
that when sin came in and they fell, I didn't even know that God said to Adam, he said, where are you? Because here's the thing, you know this, you're a preacher, right? God never asked questions for information. He asked questions to elicit a response. He did not need to know where Adam was geographically. All God knew was something has separated you from me. Something has tore you apart from me. And there's now a breach. There's now a chasm between you and me. And I created you to be with me. And that's what happened for me is there was this breach. There was this chasm. And God says, where are you? God knew I was in my bedroom. God knew I was depressed. God knew but God wanted me to say, here I am, Lord. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you everything. Yeah. So it was where are you is the first question. And then I just felt like he was saying to me, what are you doing and where are you going?
I love that. And then okay, this is loaded because I want to ask like 17 questions right now, right? Like all at the same time, but watch. Okay, so here we go. Where are you? God will always elicit the response. He's playing hide and seek. What are you doing? Right? Because Adam's response was, I was naked, ashamed, so I hid. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, why are you doing that? Why?
Yeah.
And where are you going? Where are you getting your direction from? Who told you you're naked?
Yeah.
Where are you getting all of that from? Right? And those of you that are listening right now, I want you to pause, man. Like, now don't lose your rhythm if you're like on the Stairmaster. Hopefully by the time this content releases, maybe we're allowed to go back to the gym. I miss the gym, bro, for real. Like I told a friend of mine like a couple days ago, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be like penitentiary thick when we get back. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna be doing push-ups and stuff, bro. Like no cardio. But I want you to ask yourself those questions though. Like, where am I right now? What am I doing? And where am I going? Right? Like that's major. And those questions, Daniel, thank you for sharing that, man. Those questions will always become precursors and catalysts to life change. Yeah. Right? And so give us a little bit, man. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, I love hearing your story. So if you can keep drawing from your story and what the next steps were, and how you responded to those questions for anyone who's just looking to change life, whether it's a certain habit, maybe it's coming out of a relationship, maybe it's ending a job, maybe it's choosing a career. I don't know, right? But when we're confronted with the moments of life change from your own experience, what did that look like for you? You called your dad, you said, I got to go, I got to change my environment. That's a big next step, right? Yeah. And a lot of us, we feel the nudge and we feel the leading and the drawing of the Holy Spirit to change our life. But many times we don't respond because we have no idea what the next step is, right? So help us make that plain, man. Give us some good perspective on that.
Yeah. Well, man, for me at that time in my life, at that moment, I just needed everything to change. And when I felt like God spoke to me and asked me those questions, and I felt like I had that moment, and I felt like I had connected with this God that I had no relationship with, and I needed to find a way to get to him. I needed to find a way to do whatever I'm supposed to do now, right? And so that's what kind of like nudged me to call my dad. And my dad, I knew, was a Christian, that he was going to church, and that he lived 5 hours away from where I lived. And so there was something at that season of my life that was so important about me, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but like separating from relationships, separating from environments, separating from so much that like I was not strong enough to do that on my own. There was no way I was going to stay there and stop doing drugs. Not then. There was no way. I had just met God. All I knew is God, I believe you're real. I'm coming after you, and I got to do something about it. If I stay here, I'm gonna smoke a blunt tomorrow, snort a line later, and get some, like I got to change. I got to get out of here. And so you know,
Gods.
I think I would love to hope and think that I'm a little more disciplined now in my life, after walking with the Lord for so long than I was then, you know, but I just know looking back that it was so important. And I have met people, grown men, mature, or grown women, mature, got their own bank account, got their own resources, got their own relationship, got it going on. But no matter what they do, no matter what they do, the relationships that they're surrounded by are
Come on.
toxic.
Yeah.
And so they
That's
can't
big.
get away, they can't change. And especially when you have an addictive, you have to be honest with yourself. If you have an addictive personality, and you're dealing with some really, really strong strongholds, we call them in church world, but they're habits. They're habits that
Yeah.
become addictions, right? Those things have to be dealt with. And I needed to deal with it, and I needed to do it in an extreme way. And so I have met people who have it all together, but because of their environment, they can't break free from this one thing that's
Wow.
ultimately controlling everything, and they've got everybody fooled that everything's fine. So anyway, you know, for me though, that I know it's a little different, you know, coming out of that lifestyle and having such a dramatic change. But for people who feel like, man, maybe just in quarantine, if that's still going on, if that's still a thing when this goes live, or if not, maybe you can look back on that time where you were in quarantine and just ask yourself, like, did I answer any of God's questions?
Mm.
If God
Mm.
said, "Where are you?" Did I draw near to Him? Did I pursue Him? And sometimes the greatest ways for us to pursue God at a great or a higher level than we have before is doing exactly what I did in that time of my life, separating from some old stuff,
That's
cutting
big.
off, you know,
Wow.
That's a
circumcision of the heart, cutting off flesh that doesn't belong, saying no to some things that are not even necessarily sinful, but they're distractions. Man, when I went to Bible college, see, that's the thing too, is like once God got my attention and I moved to Atlanta, I quickly felt a calling on my life because I saw an evangelist who is a former gang leader, a former drug lord in Chicago, had been shot, stabbed, burned, and is still alive preaching the gospel. And when I met that guy, I said, if God can use him, because see, here's the thing.
Lord.
I didn't know God used people like that because I had never read my Bible. I didn't know Paul the Apostle used to be Saul the murderer. I didn't know Rahab, which is the lineage of Jesus Christ, was a prostitute. I didn't know David, which was one of the greatest kings God would ever use, was just a smelly kid in the field that nobody wanted. I didn't know any of that. You're right. I didn't know. So when I met this dude who was so raw and so real and had been through so much in his life, but teenagers who were like in gangs for real, like with like they're in gangs for real, not like when we were kids and I'm like, I'm in a gang, kids. No, like they're in gang. They will cut you. I would see these gang leaders like break, and these tough dudes, man, lay down their rags, right? This was years ago. And when I saw this kind of ministry, I said, God, could I do something? There's no way. I didn't believe it. But there were leaders around me as I began to go to church, as I began to go to young adult group, as I began to do these things. There were people who said, there's something on your life. And here's the thing, man, nobody was telling me that in my life, right? So when I had leaders that surrounded me saying, hey, there's something on your life. They had never heard me preach. I didn't do any of that stuff back then. They just felt that they wanted to encourage me. And that's the kind of thing that spurred me on to say, I'm going to go to Bible college. I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to learn this thing. I'm going to learn the Bible. I'm going to learn. And that was the beginning stages of me feeling called to ministry from that evangelist. And I just think about that today. Like, Lord, I've thought in the past, like I want to be successful, but I don't even pray that anymore. I say, Lord, don't make me successful. I say, Lord, make me effective.
Yeah.
And that's my
Yeah.
heart. The true test of if I'm effective as a minister isn't did I preach the paint off the walls. The true test is the people who I ministered to. The youth that I think about, the young people I youth pastored for over a decade of youth ministry, all these young people, the real test is what kind of moms and dads are they now? You know what I mean? What kind of brothers and sisters, what kind of relationships do they have? Did I impact them beyond a cool illustration on a Wednesday night? And so that's what gets me up in the morning, man. Ministry never sleeps, right? And so in the middle of this global pandemic, people are checking on me all the time. Like, hey, are you okay? We know you travel full time. That's your primary source of income, right? Are you okay? Are you good? And I'm like, yes, I'm good, because here's the truth. I love preaching. I love going to events. I love going to these camps and conferences. I hope it all picks back up in the summer. I got a full schedule. But But for me, my goal in ministry is not that. My goal is that the lost are found. My goal is that the blind see. My goal is that people are being changed by the power of God and they're growing in their walk with God. So whether I have a microphone on a stage or not, I have to tell myself I'm a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's true for anybody listening right now.
Yeah. I love it. Bro. I love it. That whether you're at a campsite or on a YouTube stream, bro, like you gonna preach, right?
That's right.
I want to backtrack a little bit to a theme that was really emerging a couple minutes ago, which was a theme of separation, right? Separation will bring you life. It will protect you. I mean, literally, that's what we're in right now. We want to be protected from this invisible foe, right? That's getting people. Why or how? By staying home. Stay home, right? And separation is such a hard, for some reason, such a hard principle in a relative culture, right? It's like, man, I think I can be okay. I think I can be in it. I think I can be part of it. I can be in it. And I'm reminded right now what Paul wrote, and he said, hey man, it's specifically of sexual sin, but he was talking just sin period. But he said, man, can a man hold fire to his bosom and not be burned, right? And so I think there's something really special in separation. And I'm remembering when my life changed and I started following Jesus for real. Like I quit a job. I sold a duplex. I changed my number. Back then there was no social media. It was like 3 or 4 years before Facebook hit, right? It was like, and so you couldn't find people back then, right? I moved to a different side of town. And there was just something about the separation, something about just saying, man, I cannot be a part of this. I can't belong to this anymore. I can't do that. Right. Talk to me a little bit about just in your experience as a leader for Next Gen. Why is that a principle? Why is that an element that young adults just kind of like resist, don't like the idea of? Like, what's the deal there? And why should we embrace it more? Does that make sense?
Separation, you mean?
Yeah. There's other words, right? There's words like consecration. There's words like sanctification. Like those are old school Pentecostal like church words that you don't necessarily hear it anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I think what happens is a lot of times we want to manage situations rather than resolve them and just be transformed.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, separation, I mean, I think about God doesn't want us to be separate. I mean, in the beginning, what did he say? It's not good for man to be alone. But I mean, obviously we are all having to deal at some level with being separate. But when I think about separation in the Bible, that's really what death is. If you really study your Bible and you look at the right context, you'll find that death in the Bible is not just like a heart stops beating, right? It's separation. That's why like eternal death is separation from God. You're eternally separate. It's death, not life. It's darkness, not light. And I think that God wants us to have relationships at all times, at any cost. I think God wants us to be in relationship with each other on multiple levels. And that's why I thank God for technology and what it's allowing church leaders. And, I saw a meme the other day that, it's like, and just like that, all the pastors are televangelists, like, because we all got to do what we got to do to get this word out there. Separation, man. I've really been thinking about this, though. I've been thinking about the social anxiety that this could create in people. I've been thinking about how this could condition people, just to feel like they don't need to be around as much. I don't really know how people ultimately will respond or how much longer we're going to be stuck inside. I really don't. But this is what I know. I know God wants us to have relationships. And I know my generation, generations to come, like we're all about getting resources and getting likes and comments and having the right swag and having money. And we're all about resources and tangibles. But like, relationships are so much greater than resources. In fact, relationships, when done right, relationships become your greatest resource in every sense of the word. I think about when Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and God asked for them to make a sacrifice, and he asked for a blood sacrifice, right? Well, one gave the good sacrifice and the other one brought forth the fruit of the ground. But if you think about that, we know that he ended up killing his brother, right? The whole thing went south. But if you think about that, all he had to do was ask his bro, hey, bro, You're the one that tends the fields. You work with the animals. I'm over here planting carrots and fruit and stuff. Can you help a brother out? Because God asked that we bring this sacrifice. I don't really know how to do it myself, but what did he do? He did what so many people do today, is he sabotaged relationship in order to get resource. And that's what I'm learning today, is that, man, relationships are so crucial. Just because I'm not at a church every Sunday, and just because I'm not, with the general population, does not mean I don't need to connect with people. I just need to hear somebody's voice today. I just need to get on the phone, because my greatest opportunities, all of them, Cruz, all of them, my greatest opportunities, all of them, I can draw back with my finger and point it to a relationship. This relationship is what God used ultimately, right? I know God's the center of the process, but like those opportunities, those open doors are through my relationships. And I just hope that in this time, we don't just, let me speak to this maybe at a different angle too, because here's what I've been thinking about, bro. Yeah, there's a lot of negatives that are going on with this global pandemic and social distancing and such. But this is the perfect opportunity for so many people to do what they've been praying they had time to do. You've been wanting to do the podcast, do the book, do the sermon, learn how to preach, talk to this person, get help, start your coaching, whatever, do your webinars. This is your time. You have the perfect opportunity to begin, even if you're not going to launch something, right? You have the perfect opportunity. We all have the perfect opportunity to prepare for something right now. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm in the background right now preparing some stuff. I'm working on some things because I know preparation is vital. I want to be like a knife laying in a drawer. Like, I got to sharpen myself. I got to make sure that I'm ready so that when I get pulled out of the drawer, I can be used to make a difference. Ephesians chapter 6:15. It's one of my favorite verses that doesn't get quoted a lot. Ephesians 6:15 says, we do not go to battle barefoot. Okay. In other words, be prepared, have a good foundation, have stability. I heard a great preacher say this years ago. He said it this way. I love it. He said, if we sweat in preparation, we won't bleed in battle. And that's what we have the opportunity to do right now, is to prepare for what is next, what is to come. While I'm here and I'm alone, let me prepare, because God always prepares us in obscurity before he pushes us into popularity. He always prepares us for what he's called us to do. I think about Moses. He was prepared, educated, 40 years. Then he was prepared another 40 years in the wilderness after the palace. This 80 years, right? He's still learning. He's still learning humility. He's tending the sheep. That was all preparation for him. 80 years. Paul spent 14 years in obscurity before he started doing his thing. Jesus spent 30 years preparing for his ministry. David, the story of David. We know it's Goliath, but what about the lion and the bear? That was his social distancing. That was David being separated from people, but he was right where God needed him to be so that he would be able to fight that giant one day, man. Obscurity is God's dark room. That's where God develops you. And there's nothing worse than a leader who gets overexposed when they're underdeveloped. We have to let God do what he's doing in this season. And so, yes, people are dying. I'm praying every day for people I don't know, people I'll never meet, because I truly care about what's going on. But I also know for us leaders, we have the perfect opportunity to do what we've been saying we were going to do, to prepare for what's next, to prepare for what's coming. And I hope people who are listening to this or watching this, I hope that that's what they're doing. If they have downtime, even if we're not in this social distancing journey anymore, that people are finding time to prepare. I asked one of my mentors, Cruz, years ago. I asked him, I said, hey, like, what do I need to do to be able to do what you're doing? He was traveling and preaching full time. And he said, well, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, nothing. That's why I'm asking you, And he's like, no, I mean, do you have a website? And I'm like, well, nobody's trying to book me. He said, but how would they? And I was like, okay. He said, how many sermons do you have? I said, I got about 4. He said, you're going to need about 45, And so he just began to challenge me to see beyond where I was and to see beyond, just what was in front of me. And I think that's so important.
No, I love that, man. You just took a thought that I was thinking while I was hearing you speak, man. I really love hearing people who take themselves seriously. Yeah. Right. People who are working, doing the work, even when no one's watching. I love the thought of a knife in a drawer. I stay sharp. I think of Stephen Covey's, one of the habits is sharpen the axe, right?
Yeah.
I don't sharpen the axe because someone's watching. I sharpen the axe because I'm a freaking lumberjack. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that's what we this is what we do. And it drives me nuts a little bit as the Lord has put us in a place and given us the honor to lead next generation ministry at our church and to interact with young adults and work on their development. When I hear someone say, yeah, man, I just watched The Office for the 4th time. To me, it's like, okay, well, are you writing a TV sitcom? Like, are you going to be, I don't even know who wrote it. Is Ricky Gervais the guy that wrote The Office? Is that who it was? I don't know who it was. Whoever it was, that doesn't matter. But to me, it's like, is that why you're watching it over and over? Because like you're going to be a screenwriter, or like, what are you doing? And to me, it's like, because if that's where your head, you want to take your life, then I get you watching something on Netflix for the 4th time, 6th time serious. But why aren't you taking your, like, if all you're doing is to disconnect, disengage, why are you doing that and not taking your calling, your purpose, something serious, right? Talk to me a little bit about that, man. Like when it really clicked for you, right? If you can go back to, I think there was a sensing where you said, there's a call of God on my life. But when you said no, okay, cool, then I'm actually going to go pay GoDaddy or whatever, right, for the website, and I'm going to go XYZ, right? Like what clicked for you when you started taking this thing serious?
I think I just realized that, with, greater with greater, things that you want to do in your life, the more responsibility it's going to take from you. And I said to the Lord, I said, I want to do more, God. I went to ministry school. I got a degree. I said, Lord, I'll serve. I don't care what job I get. I just want to serve. I want to preach, teach, reach, however. And after I went through Bible college and began to serve as a youth pastor, and God began to open more doors for me, I began to really see, wow, like the glimpses that God gave me years ago when I didn't have anybody to preach to, of preaching in these masses of people and preaching to people I'd never seen before, but I was going from place to place. Like I had a dream that I would do that one day. And as I got closer to those doors opening, I began to sense that some of those doors were going to begin to open. And as I did, I just said, Lord, I don't want to go into a new season with like this old passion or this old passion is not the right word. This old, just dried up, like going through the processes of ministry. Like I want something fresh. I want something new. And I just felt like the Lord said to me very, very, very simply, with more, it's going to require more. And that sounds so simple, but I said, okay, what do you mean, Lord? Like, okay, I got to sacrifice. Yeah. What, but like, I want more opportunities. And he said, no, it's going to require more sacrifice of yourself. It's going to require, we don't talk about this a lot anymore as preachers, but crucifying your flesh. In other words, I began to realize God was saying to me, I'm not looking at what everybody else is looking at. I'm looking beyond that surface level stuff, not the tip of the iceberg that everybody sees, but that 90% beneath the surface, your character, your integrity, who you are as a man, who you are when nobody's looking. And I would say that's so key, man, because God really does elevate. God really does open those doors. And if you believe that, then you've got to be a real person with God. And you can't be real with God if you can't be real with yourself. You got to say, okay, here's where I am. Here's where I want to go. And that's why coaches are so important. That's why I have mentors and coaches, because coaches come alongside you and they say, hey, you can do this, but you're not doing what's necessary because you don't believe you can. I'm telling you, if you do these things, you're going to make it, bro. Right. So I began to tell myself that. I began to tell myself, I'm going to demand more of myself. I'm going to demand excellence when nobody's watching. I mean, here's the key, man. What am I going to do if I get a title that I don't have the character for? What am I going to do if I get the responsibilities that I don't have the training for? What am I going to do if I face challenges that I did not prepare myself for? So I began to prepare when no one was looking. I think for some aspiring, especially if you're an aspiring preacher or pastor, it's like stop so much worrying about the stage. That's what I had to do, and start worrying about the infrastructure up underneath that stage. Right. That's what God began to challenge me in, is that I would deepen myself. And then the deeper I would go with God, the deeper a well I would have to draw from to help others and to minister to other people. And so I'm very disciplined at times and very not at other times. I go through these seasons. And when I begin to say, Lord, you're calling me to this, because it's a risk. It is a faith step to quit your job working for a church that will pay you and let you travel and pay you well to do something you love to do. And then to walk into your boss, your pastor as well, who you love, and say, hey, I feel like I'm going to just say no to your check and I'll go try to do this on my own somehow. Like, that's a big deal. So I didn't want to do that in my own flesh. I didn't want to do that in my own skill sets. I said, Lord, I'm going to need you. So I'm going to challenge myself to go to a deeper level. And I began to prepare myself even more so. I don't know if you guys watch UFC or whatever, but one of my favorite stories about preparation is the story of, I think it was when Conor McGregor fought Nate Diaz for the second time. It might've been the third, but it was a rematch anyway. If you know who those guys are, big fighters, and they were having this rematch. And Conor McGregor, because the last time they had fought, it didn't go the way he wanted, right? So he spent over $300,000 in preparation for this fight. All the things, all the nutritionists, all the flights, all the staff, all the $300,000 just to prepare for this one fight. And he won that fight. And that was like, when I saw that on ESPN, it leapt off the screen at me. Preparation costs something. It costs something. He gave so much just to make sure he was the most prepared he could be to fight. Champions have discipline, right? They don't wait till fight night to get ready. They sweat in preparation so they don't bleed in battle, right? And so that's what I began to do. I began to just develop myself more, and I think the key is that I always stay that way, bro. Is that I never feel like I can preach better. I can preach like, if people tell me that, great, but I don't want to see myself that way. I want to see myself as a learner, as somebody I don't have it figured out. I'm learning every day. The world is evolving and changing so fast anyway. My communication style evolves and changes based on who I'm preaching to and where I'm at. And I have to be open to allowing God to help me see that, because sometimes as a communicator, we can be so confident that we get an overinflated self of confidence, and we feel like our way is the only way, and our thought is the only thought, and our way to say it is the only way to say it. And I said, Lord, as I step out into this new season of broader exposure, I want to be able to witness and minister to people from all kinds of walks of life. So I began to study, man. I began to study what other religions believe, what other denominations believe. And I don't have any friends that are evangelists that told me they did that. But I said, Lord, you said go into all the world. You didn't say go into all of the Assembly of God churches. Like, I want to do that, but I want you to expose me to all kinds of places to bring the truth of your word. And so I began to study, so I could do cultural exegesis. When I go to places, if I know what denomination I'm preaching to, what culture I'm preaching to, I've done cultural exegesis of my audience, and I'm going to say things that connect with them, and things that maybe I would say in another audience that may offend some in this audience. I may not say that because maybe they don't have the same view. That's just one little example of like something I did to say I'm preparing myself for something greater. The last thing I'll say about that is this, a blessing, like, that's an open door from God. If you think about it, an open door in your life, if you get that open door and you get that opportunity, you get that role, that position, that job, whatever, if you're not prepared for it, it's not a blessing, it's a curse. You will actually, when people see you're not ready, or when you see that you're not ready, you'll actually be demoted and not promoted, because preparation is so important.
Man, that's so this whole conversation today, man. Thank you so much, dude. It's been so good, so rich, so deep. And
yeah, man.
One thing I really respect about you guys is it seemed like we were living in a time where discipleship and mentorship, there was almost a vacuum for people stepping into those roles, and the people that were moving into other areas, not in a bad way, but there was a, in my opinion, a real void of people with a voice like yours that were stepping in and said, I'm going to make myself available for the people that are coming up. And I really respect that about you guys for seeing a need and filling it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about your ministry is you see the need, whether it's at a church or whether a person you're ministering to, and you fill that need. And one of the things that I was thinking as I was listening to you just a few moments ago is maybe we have some people on this listening today, or maybe they're watching, and they are 19 years old, just getting into college, or maybe they are a 28-year-old youth pastor, or they're just getting into ministry, or maybe they're a youth leader or a young adult leader, or they're just starting to serve in church. And we're talking about digging deep and going deep, and the desired, almost the inward push to go deep. Can you give, just as we're landing the plane today, could you give like a few practical things, no matter where you're at in your walk with Christ, no matter what level you may think you're on, whether you're a beginner, we've been around for a while, you're a pastor of 20 years. What are some practical things that we can say, this is how you today can make a choice to go deep in your walk with Christ and take it to the next level?
Man, yeah, absolutely. I think it's, first of all, if you're listening and you want to remember this phrase or write it down: back to the basics. Back to the basics. If you want to go deeper with God, back to the basics. Number one is prayer. You got to pray. Prayer is sometimes okay. Prayer is sometimes more about you listening than you talking. And so put that as a side note. Putting on worship music and just listening and just thinking about what you read, which is the second basic, is getting in your Bible. There is not a better time than now to begin to get in the Word, to say, I want to go deeper. If you've never read Bible from cover to cover, don't feel guilty, feel hungry, feel like I want to read this thing. One of the things that, this is going to be real, like, okay, just let me do this real quick. I'm ADD. It's fine. Get over it.
Do it.
Okay. So I wanted to show you this. I had to take my opportunity and put my earbuds back in so I can hear. I got these books, right? This is not a promo. This is not an ad. I don't even know this guy, but he did these books called The Bible Study, right? And so his name is Zach Wendell. Let me show you right there if you want to look at it. I promote this book to people that want to go deeper, because he has an Old Testament and a New Testament. This book is a Bible study to do in a year. And literally it is like the coolest, like illustrated, amazing personal Bible study you've ever seen. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I just had Heather buy these for me. They're actually pretty expensive because they're like really, really good quality. But I do stuff like that all the time. I know the Bible. Like, this is a general Bible study, but I bought it because I want to make sure that I'm continuing to deepen myself in the Word. And so even the things that we've heard a million times, we need to hear a million more. And that's so important. And so I just encourage you, prayer, word. And then the next thing that I would say is, as soon as you can, begin to develop godly relationships with people who are where you want to go and who look like you want to look. Do your best to find mentors, find relationships, find people that are doing what you want to do, or who are going where you want to go, who are where you want to be one day, and make those relationships a key part of your life. Even through this whole social distancing thing, find ways to get on the phone with people and ask questions. Great leaders ask great questions, and you can start asking questions today to people that'll help you deepen yourself spiritually. I hope that helps.
So good.
Man, that's so good. Wow. Well, this has been great. I mean, again, we can't thank you enough for taking time out away from family and everything that you have going on.
I love it.
To sit, talk some wrestling with us, talk some ministry, talk some Jesus, man. We really appreciate your time, bro. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Hey, no, for real. Thanks for holding this standard, Daniel. Seriously, I'm saying that with all of my heart, man. That there's just a different edge to guys like you, you know. And you aren't just trying to be cool, but you are. Right. But you're not just trying to be popular. You are, right. But you are a man of God.
Thanks.
I believe this, and I just want to affirm it, man. It was said of Peter and John, they were not necessarily men of great education. I'm not saying that you're not, but something was obvious, that they had spent time with Jesus.
Right.
You know, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted your voice on our content and with our culture, was because we wanted said of them the same thing. You know, we want them to walk into every environment, every room, every relationship. And one thing is obvious, that they know Jesus.
Right.
You know, we want that, man, you know, and so this is an incredible deposit in our culture. And we got to do this again and some more, and we got to find a reason to have Daniel Gray just come back, get some Mexican food in El Paso.
Heck yeah.
Come on.
So,
we'll hit up a wrestling show when they're in town, and we'll do some lead.
Hey, there's a former WWE superstar that lives in El Paso that's really good friends of ours.
Okay.
Come
on now. That's awesome.
Got us from El Paso.
My dream is to let somebody like Mark McGaffin suplex me in a real ring. So.
Oh, dude.
Okay, so then it's done.
I want to take the ride.
All about it, man. I think it'd be a great time.
We'll film the whole thing. I mean, it'll be a full production, lights, audio, everything. We'll get mic'd up, the whole thing.
I'm so about it. Like, I think it would be all time. Like, it's not gonna get better than that.
100%.
Oh my gosh. Hey, everyone that's listening, we want to thank you for listening to the Prime Culture Podcast. Remember, Friday is always Prime Day. We're coming at you with fresh stuff with guys as awesome as Pastor Daniel Gray. Again, thank you so much for spending time with us. We can't thank you enough. It has been awesome. Pastor Cruz, you want to lead us out?
Yeah, we're good, man. Hey, listen, just landing the plane, I want to remind you, one of the things that I just want to end with that I love about Daniel is that there are no notes. There was no prescript. There was nothing sent. And when I hear this man speak, I hear something that is important to me that one of my mentors said to me was, Cruz, you stay ready and got to get ready, right? And Proverbs 16 says, preparation is in the heart of man, but the answer of the tongue is the Lord. You know, and so I believe that the Lord spoke to you as you were listening to this. I believe the Lord spoke to you because there was a man of God who is on this content who stayed ready. Preparation is such a key to your success. Don't neglect it. Stay ready.